Good day, everyone. My name is Justin. And yes, today I'll be walking you all through this short webinar on data governance in the era of AI. So let's jump right into it. So the situation that we're trying to address today is the rapid adoption and implementation of artificial intelligence and generative AI apps. These AI applications are acting on and generating new data at a rapid rate. So the need to secure and govern the data used and produced by these apps is coming to the forefront, especially as the new risks that come with implementing and deploying these generative AI apps and agents are not fully known. So as you see on the slide, amidst all of this, data security incidents continue to rise and are indeed getting more severe. Just with the introduction of AI applications, there's been a 1.5 times increase in the number of data security incidents. Also, insiders continue to account for a significant amount of these incidents. Now, I'd just like to note that this stems from malicious and accidental activities, but nonetheless, insiders are the cause behind a decent portion of your data security incidents. And lastly, a large majority of leaders have considered sensitive data leakage as their main concern as they plan to deploy or are in the process of deploying Copilot or other generative AI at scale. So all of this is making securing your data a top priority. Okay, so getting into the solution to our data problems. Microsoft Purview, which is our main solution for today, offers a comprehensive portfolio of solutions to seamlessly secure and govern your data. This helps lower the complexity and improve your outcomes related to mitigating risks in this era of AI. So this solution, Purview, allows your data security teams, your data office, which will be responsible for data governance, and your legal and compliance teams to all work within this unified solution and benefit from the shared capabilities. So there's three main sections of Purview outlined here. However, today our focus is on that first pillar, so data security. All right, so getting into the solutions within data security in Purview now. So when you look at this slide, you can think of it as 4 pillars that you could operationalize. So as IT or security leaders and analysts, these solutions help you to answer 4 important questions. So firstly, what data is sensitive? Also, how do we prevent this data loss? Who is performing risky activities with it? And what sensitive data is my AI or my AI applications using? How do we control it? So I'll break down these 4 pillars in some detail. We'll start with information protection. This is the foundation of everything else that you'll see us build on today. So it's how you discover and classify your sensitive data at scale through automation, machine learning, etc. Then you could apply sensitivity labels to the data. That way your organization has a consistent language for what's considered public versus confidential versus highly confidential. And those labels help drive protection controls. So that protection is also meant to follow the data across environments and throughout its life cycle. Sensitivity labels isn't just tagging, but it's enforceable protection that travels with the content. So we did a deeper walkthrough of information protection in a previous webinar. So today we'll keep it anchored here and we'll spend some more time on the pillars that you care about for your day-to-day. So once your data is classified and it's labeled, the next logical step for you is data loss prevention. So turning the knowledge and awareness that you now have of your sensitive data into control. And the main feature of data loss prevention are the policies. So we can create policies to prevent or alert our users of unauthorized actions, like improperly storing, sharing, or even printing sensitive data. These policies also cover other cloud and AI applications, as well as browsers, which is where a lot of real-world incidents happen. Another key benefit here is the scale and the consistency. You can create, deploy, and manage these data loss prevention policies across your cloud apps and services, your devices, all from this single location. And because data loss prevention is driven by classification and user context, you're not just limited to static rules. So Purview's data loss prevention allows you to fine-tune and adapt your policies over time. Now, where insider risk management comes in is when you want to move beyond pure enforcement and really understand the risk and the intention around your sensitive data. So insider risk management uses analytics, machine learning, and sequencing to really understand your users' behavior with context, not just treat them as isolated events. So insider risk management helps you answer questions like, is this activity accidental? Is it negligent or potentially malicious? Is this a one-off mistake or is this a pattern that I'm recognizing? And when something does rise to your attention, you're not just starting from raw logs. So insider risk management actually gives you very curated, detailed alerts and evidence designed for investigation. There's also built-in user privacy while you're investigating or identifying those high-risk users, which is very important from a compliance perspective. And finally, data security posture management or data security posture management for AI is what gives you continuous visibility and control as AI becomes embedded across your data estate. So it continuously discovers where your sensitive data exists and how it's being used with AI workloads, with copilots, agents, and different connected services. From there, it helps you identify new risks introduced by AI usage. So things like oversharing, unintended exposure, sensitive data being pulled into prompts and responses. So the outcome isn't just awareness, but a stronger overall data security posture for your AI scenarios. These insights, they help you understand risk, prioritize gaps, and they guide you on how you should tune and extend your protection controls as your AI adoption scales. All right. So we covered the solutions that we're looking at for today. How exactly do they help you tackle the risks and the AI risks? So the real value here comes from using these solutions together, not just in isolation. So when you operate them as an integrated set, you're able to proactively understand your data security posture. You're able to put controls in place that adapt to real risk and ultimately reduce exposure. So each capability strengthens the other, which is what allows you to move from a very reactive security posture to something more proactive, more intentional, and scalable. So some examples here. So for example, when you use information protection and data loss prevention together, you move beyond simply knowing where your sensitive data exists. So yes, you're able to automatically discover and classify that data. You can also apply sensitivity labels, but also you can then enforce controls that prevent unauthorized use. So again, whether that's oversharing or copying files to a USB drive, uploading documents to unsanctioned locations, etc. So this is often where you can see the immediate value, because classification gives data loss prevention the context that it needs to be very precise rather than disruptive of your workflows. Secondly, you can use information protection and insider risk management together. So this allows you to better understand your users' intent around sensitive data, to identify the most critical data risks within your organization. Another example is if you use insider risk management and the data loss prevention. Then you could enable this feature called adaptive protection. So what is adaptive protection? Pretty much, instead of applying the same data loss prevention controls to everyone, you can dynamically assign stronger or more restrictive policies based on a user's risk level. So that means that controls tighten when there's increased risk, and they relax where a user poses a very low or no risk at all. And lastly, when DSPM for AI, insider risk management, and data loss prevention work together, so DSPM for AI provides visibility and reporting into how Copilot and other AI are actually being used with your sensitive data. So this will highlight exposure gaps and risky patterns. DSPM for AI, as we'll see in the demonstration as well, also provides recommendations for which data loss prevention and insider risk management policies need to be created or tuned. Okay, so before we move into the demonstration, this slide is really about the coverage and the scale. Purview is designed to secure your data wherever it lives and wherever it's accessed. So that includes the Microsoft 365 workloads, of course, like Exchange, SharePoint, Teams, the Office apps, but also across devices, browsers, different endpoints, where a lot of your real-world data risks really show up. That coverage extends beyond these collaboration spaces into your data estates. So platforms like Microsoft Fabric, Dataverse, various Azure databases, Databricks, and the AI services, which is very critical as sensitive data is increasingly feeding analytics into these AI workloads. You also see there's support for copilots, so the free and paid version of Copilot, which your organizations may be considering or already adopting. Also, enterprise AI apps and agents that you may be creating using Copilot Studio or AI Foundry. So the same classification, protection, and risk signals apply when this data is being accessed through AI, not just by your end users. And importantly, this isn't limited to Microsoft-only environments. Purview continues to expand across multi-cloud and third-party data sources, along with non-Office file types as well. The key takeaway here is that this coverage is continuously expanding. Microsoft is actively extending Purview to new workloads, new AI scenarios, new access paths. So your data security strategy can keep pace as your environment evolves. So with that context, let's jump into the demonstration, show how some of these capabilities actually come together in practice. So specifically, we're going to look at data loss prevention and insider risk management policies. For each of those solutions, we'll look at a policy specifically for AI and another for general data governance. So let me go ahead and get the demonstration set up. Okay, so we're here in the Purview portal. This may be familiar to some of y'all. If not, we're going to take a bit of a walkthrough today. So there's a bunch of solutions within Purview that you can see here. However, we're going to start with data loss prevention. Let me get it to load. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, the policy is the main part of DLP or data loss prevention. So let's take a look at the policies that we have here. There are a few policies within this tenant, within this organization. I'm going to walk through the process of creating a new policy to show you all some of the options that you have. I'm going to create a policy, scope it to my apps and my devices, and get started. First thing we'll see, there are some regulations. So some governing bodies and acts in the event that your company or organization needs to adhere to certain standards. You can use built-in policy templates, but I'm going to create a custom policy. For the sake of this demonstration, I will just name it demo. Again, you can put a name, a description specific to the policy itself, and we're going to walk through this process. So I'm not going to assign any specific admins to the policy. I'm going to leave it as default. Here is where we see some of the locations that we can apply this policy to. So Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams is expected. There's also devices, instances, on-prem repositories and data that you have on premises, and also Copilot and Copilot Chat. So once you select this option, you aren't able to scope it to any others. So Copilot and Copilot Chat needs its own policy. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with Copilot, and we're going to create our own DLP or data loss prevention rule. I'm going to create a rule, and for the sake of this demonstration, let's just say I would like to block IP addresses. So I don't want Copilot or Copilot Chat to process any IP addresses that I'm putting into the prompts. So for whatever your use case is, you can tweak or tune it. So my condition, as it kind of is implied by the name, I need to see when content contains IP addresses. So I'm going into my sensitive information types. I'm going to look specifically for IP address. So I see there's v4, v6, and a general one. I'm going to select all three. So my condition is that content needs to contain IP addresses. When that does happen, so when this matches, what action do I want to take? So specific to DLP policies in Copilot, there's one main action, and that is to block the processing of the prompt. So if that's a file as well that includes this information type, Copilot will not be able to process that content. So I'm selecting processing prompts. Additionally, I can send alerts to certain admins, certain groups. I can also fine tune the volume of alerts that I want to send. So pretty simple, short rule. If our content contains any IP addresses, I want Copilot to block it. This could also change to medical conditions, proprietary information within your organization, employee IDs, etc. I'm going to leave it as IP addresses. Pretty simple rule. And the final part of the data loss prevention policy, I can choose if I want to put the policy in simulation mode. If I want to show policy tips to my end users, I could also choose to immediately turn it on, and it will have an effect on the end users, or turn it off. There's no real reason to turn it off. It's recommended to put it in simulation so that way it does not affect your end users, but you can still see and audit all of the activity. Now, a similar policy is already in place, so I'm not going to submit the policy, but that is the process for creating a data loss prevention policy. There's some more details and fine-tuning that goes into it, but that is a general idea. So we have a similar policy already in place to prevent sensitive data processing within Copilot. I can see it's scoped to all accounts, and it blocks Copilot from processing confidential information. So most likely anything labeled as confidential. There's also a policy here, not specific to AI, but it's preventing credit card data exfiltration. And there's also a general policy for preventing sensitive data from external sharing. So we'll see how these DLP policies sort of take place and fit in with one another. So I pull up this new screen here, and this is the end user that the persona sort of that we're going to be playing. So this person's name is Alex, I believe, and he's in the marketing department. So he has this document here with some customer billing information. I can see there's some sensitive data here, the customer's credit card number, security code. So this may be a new client that Alex got through his marketing campaigns or whatnot. And what we're going to do is see how Copilot and as well as Outlook process and interact with this document. So let's just say I want to send this information to maybe my finance team. I'm going to go into Copilot here, and I'm going to ask it to draft up a short email for me. So have a bit of a prompt saved on the side here. And so far, this prompt seems fine. I want to draft a quick email to finance referencing an attached document with the billing information of a new customer. So this would be the same as if I was to pull up Copilot within Outlook itself. So I'm going to pull up a new mail here, and I'm going to send it to, I'll put the finance team as the recipient. I'll also explicitly include maybe the head of finance, and I'll copy my marketing team. So far, this seems fine. I see Copilot gave me a response, so I don't have to think about the email. I'm just going to paste that there, and I'm going to say, this is new customer info. Just make sure I spell it right. And we're going to attach that file that I was just looking at. So going into my OneDrive, and I'm putting the billing profile, and I'm attaching it. So this seems fine. There's nothing against what I'm doing here. Now, what if I was trying to leak this data? So maybe I wanted to blind carbon copy an external recipient or my personal email address, some friend of mine. I wanted to share this information sort of secretly. If I try to include this recipient, I see there's a prompt that comes up at the top of my screen. So the following recipient is outside the organization, and also my email message conflicts with a policy. So if I look at the details, it's pretty much telling me I need to verify the recipients and the content as it's conflicting with a policy. So they're recommending that I remove the recipient. Now, if I try to send it with this person in copy, I will get a message. So the send has been blocked. It includes one or more recipients who are not authorized to receive the sensitive information. So I'm not able to send this document while this person is in copy. I need to remove them before I can send it. And this is because of the DLP policies that we have in place. So I realize I'm stuck here. I can't exfiltrate this data. What if I just want Copilot to maybe extract the credit card numbers so that I can send it to my friend? So I'm going to say extract the credit card number and information from this document. And again, I'm going to reference the document I want Copilot to use. And let's just see if you can pull out this credit card number and this CBC or the CBV code for me. So this is actually something built in by Microsoft. They have AI guardrails in place. And as part of their responsible AI framework, without anything configured in Purview, Copilot is telling me that it cannot extract or process credit card numbers. So they say if I need help with anything else, like confirming the format or summarizing the content, it's happy to assist. So, okay, I realize I can't pull it out like that. Let's just see if I can extract the data from the file, just in general. So just extract the data from the file, and let's put it back in the document again. So we're kind of being a bit more vague with our prompt, but we still want the same information. We still want the data, which is the credit card number. So the response I see from Copilot, it looks like they're unable to process the contents because of our security policies. So that is that data loss prevention policy that we have in place that is preventing Copilot from processing any sensitive data. So that policy is taking place now. So we can try to re-upload the file, we can try to copy paste the content. These are actually actions that we can block in Purview as well. Copy pasting into your browser or, well, re-uploading the file will not work. Copilot cannot process this. And the document also contains this confidential label, which stops it from being processed. Now, the user can try to downgrade the label on the file and re-upload it, and all of that will be detected by Purview and can still be blocked. But as you can see, there's no way for us to get into the file using Copilot. So what we can try to do is manually, type out the credit card number. So I'm hoping that this is some fake information I'm putting together here. But let's just try putting together credit card number and the CVC as well. So that seems to be fine. Now I can't send this to sales or finance. They will want to know why I'm doing that. So maybe I'm sending it to myself. And I kind of want to disguise it as maybe like the lunch menu. I'm sending this menu to myself. This seems fine. This seems like something I'm allowed to do. If I try to, again, copy this person, this external user, I see a different policy tip. So avoid sharing this file or this data, it should say, with users outside the organization. So they say I need to remove the recipient or override the block. And if I click on Learn More to view more details, I can see the message appears to contain credit card numbers. So Purview is actively detecting this credit card number and this sequence within the email. So because the policies are a bit less restrictive, I can choose to override the block. I can provide a justification, or I can simply say the message doesn't contain sensitive information, and I can override it. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to go through the overriding and see if I'm able to send it to the end user. Now we can remove that override option, so that way there's no way for it to send. But as I can see, I get emails about it. So because of the policies, my email conflicted with a policy, the message wasn't delivered to recipients. So the policy, although it didn't tell the user that it wasn't going to block it, they aren't able to send the email. So if I go into my personal Justin Caesar Outlook, I won't be able to see the message received on my end. So we can also notify your end users with emails similar to this. Your email is conflicting with a policy, and we see exactly what information was in that. So not only within the email itself, but you can set it up where your end users receive a separate email of the activity. Now, from a security officer perspective, you would get an email like this. So I just tried to do the activity. And now this is not the end user receiving this. You would set this up to be a security team. I can see that a policy matched. So prevent sensitive data processing in Copilot. So I can see the rule, I can see the user, and I can also see what file they were trying to upload into Copilot. I see that the rule, this specific rule, was the one that took place. It generated an alert, and it also restricted access. We show that restriction here. So your security officers get alerted almost immediately when policy matches happen. And as we go into Purview, we'll see more detail about the actual activity. So our DLP policies are in place. They're preventing Copilot from processing. They're also preventing our users from exfiltrating certain data. Now, what this looks like within Purview itself, if I go into data loss prevention, there's two views that I can use to see this activity. The first one I'm going to go into, the more general one, is Activity Explorer. This sort of gives me an oversight of all the activity that's taken place in my tenant. So I can see there have been some rule matches with not just myself, but also this admin account. I can see there's some Copilot interactions. So this was myself. I can see a bunch. So the label was changed on a document. There was a public label and they changed it to confidential. Some classification here. So there's a lot of data I can see in Activity Explorer. But if I want to go to those alerts that I would get in my emails, I would go to the alerts part of data loss prevention. And because of the testing and the other users in this tenant, there are a lot of alerts, but I can see there's been a policy match for Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat. So I can see the time. If I go on what happened, it should load some data, but it's processing right now. I can see that there's a rule that blocked Copilot from processing confidential information. And once it loads, I can be able to see the user who performed the action. So it is this Alex user. Let me see if I can get one to load. All right, so the activity is taking some time to load. Okay, I can see here, Alex sent an email with the subject lunch menu, which had sensitive content in it. So I can see the event, no one is assigned to it right now. But again, I'm able to see what information was detected. So your security officers don't need to get the emails. They can go directly into Purview and look at alerts. You can see it happened in Exchange. I can see the person who performed the action. So that's just an overview of DLP. When we go into some DSPM for AI, we'll go deeper into the alert itself and the actual information that was within the prompts. So I want to shift the focus a bit now to insider risk management. So it's a similar view and some similar tabs in terms of recommendations, reports, policies, etc. We're going to look at the policies. So there's two in place right now. I'll go through the process quickly of creating a policy. You have a quick policy first, which is a Microsoft or Purview recommended policy that you can quickly set up without going through the entire process, or you could create a custom policy. A custom policy is still based on a template. So I'll go through a data leaks policy just to show you all some of the features that you have, the options that you have when you're creating these policies. We're going with a demo. We're using all our users. We aren't excluding anyone. Here is where I can choose if I want to prioritize certain sites, certain files, labels, etc. For the sake of this, I'm not going to prioritize any content. And I can choose now what triggers the insider risk management policy. So if your users are performing these activities, sending emails with attachments to recipients outside the organization, sending it to yourself, which we tried to do there, sharing files outside, downgrading or removing the labels. There are also a lot that just aren't enabled right now. But for the sake of this, we're just going to keep it simple to just one triggering policy. Also, I can choose my DLP policies to also take place here. So if they do match with a data loss prevention policy, like those are lists that we looked at, it will also trigger this insider risk management policy. So I'm going to leave it as a single activity. So sending emails with attachments to recipients outside the organization. Now, what level or what volume of activity do my users need to perform for this policy to trigger? I can choose built-in thresholds, which are done by Microsoft, or I can choose my own. If I know certain users need to perform a lot of these actions, I may want to increase the thresholds. If I know the volume of activity for my users is generally a lot lower than this, I'd want to choose my own and reduce them. So I'm going to leave what is built in by Microsoft. And now once this policy has been triggered and it's detecting and calculating this specific user's activity, I can choose between a bunch of different indicators that sort of increase the risk level for this user. So similar to what we saw for the triggering actions, there's a lot of sharing stuff outside the organization, downloading content from OneDrive, from SharePoint. There's also device indicators. So if your devices are onboarded into Purview, you can monitor when they're printing files, when they're putting in USB drives, what browsers they're on, if they're downloading files and then changing the label on the device locally. You can also see some Copilot and generative AI indicators here. So if they're receiving sensitive responses or entering risky prompts into Copilot, not just Copilot, but also other enterprise AI apps, entering risky prompts into other AI apps or enterprise AI apps. So if you're using ChatGPT Enterprise, that's something that your organization is paying for, you're able to see all of the activities here and select which ones are specific to you. So there's a lot of indicators. There's even more than what we just see here. For the sake of this, we're going to keep these that are sort of default part of the template. So there's also some detection options, which we'll talk about later on. And similar to the triggering event, we get to choose a threshold for these indicators. So there's what's built in by Microsoft. There's also thresholds specific to your users' activities. So Purview sort of detects the volume of these activities that your users perform and set up the thresholds based on that. Or again, you can choose your own for each of the indicators that you selected. So you can choose how many events need to happen for a low, medium, or high severity alert to be generated. After that, it's just to review and submit, and your policy would be created. So we have two in place right now. One is a very general adaptive protection policy. So it's detecting a lot of things. If they send emails outside the organization, we will start looking at the volume of these activities that they're performing. Similarly, there's one specific to AI usage. And if we look at the settings, a few things need to trigger the event. But once it does trigger, we will look at one, if the activity is above the user's usual volume of activity, but also if they're receiving sensitive responses from Copilot, or if they're entering risky prompts into Copilot. There's also this detection option, which is like a sequence of events. So if they're downgrading or removing the label that's on a document and then asking Copilot to process the file, it detects that sequence as well, and it's using some custom thresholds. So when your users are performing enough volume of activities for them to start being picked up by insider risk management, one, you'll get alerted similar to how you get an email for data loss prevention. But if you go into the alerts within insider risk management, they look a bit different. So I have two alerts here. I see one generated 6 minutes ago based on that risky AI usage policy that we set up. And there's also one from a day ago from the second policy. So let's take a look at this alert, see what activities are being performed. So first thing first, we can't see who the user is, so it's anonymized. This is something that you can configure or change, but you don't want whoever is investigating to maybe be biased when they're going through the investigation of the case. So you can set it and leave it as anonymous, so they don't know who they're investigating. I can see all of this user's activities. So there's some sensitive responses being received from Copilot. This is most likely myself. Some files have been downloaded from OneDrive, from SharePoint. I downgraded the label on a file. So a file was labeled as confidential and I downgraded it to public. This is a bit concerning. Why was this user doing this? Again, some risky prompts being entered, some sensitive prompts being received from Copilot. If I go into the all risk factors now, it shows me the sequence of activities and the exfiltration activities that I've been performing. So I've sent some emails outside the organization. I've shared some files from SharePoint online. I can also see I've been collecting and exfiltrating some files, and I've also downgraded one file and then exfiltrated it. So there's a lot of data that you get just from the all risk factors view. I can see the top labels, the keywords, etc. If I go into the user activity now, it sort of paints a timeline for all of my actions. So it all happened within the past few days leading up to this, but I can see the sequence of events. So here I'm able to see I sent some emails with attachments outside the organization. I collected the files, so I actually downloaded these files from OneDrive, and then I sent them outside the organization. There's a few different activities that I have been doing, and there's an insider risk management is picking them up. I used AI, so there's a lot of events where I entered sensitive responses, entered sensitive prompts and received sensitive responses. And I can also see the specific information types. Now, if I click on them, it takes me back here specific to all of my sensitive responses I got from Copilot. So in this view, I'm not able to see exactly what those prompts and responses was, but we'll get into that later on. But in Insider Risk here, you're able to triage the different alerts and you can open up cases. So I can assign one of my security officers to this case. I want them to investigate it. I want them to pull all the information, create a case, come to a conclusion. If I decide, this is a false alert, I can also choose to dismiss it. So insider risk management gives you that timeline. I do have a bit of a diagram here on what a different view of the timeline looks like. So I can see based on this potential IP theft case that is open, if I look at number 5 here, this user collected the data, they made some changes to it. So they altered it, they probably tried to hide the sensitive information within the file. Then they exfiltrated it and they deleted the file. So this sequence here is pretty suspicious. I would open a case. I would collect the data, look at what this file is, determine what action needs to be taken. So that is just an overview of insider risk management. Currently, there are no cases open, but if I do want to open a case based on the evidence, I can. And if I look at my users, I have one user who has a medium level risk involved. There's 2 active alerts tied to this user. That user is myself. If I go to the reports page as well, there's a different view to get me to the alerts or the cases. And there's also recommendations in insider risk management on maybe what policies I need to put in place, what I need to turn on, etc. So insider risk management is very comprehensive. Now, the final solution that I kind of want to go into is the DSPM, or the Data Security Posture Management for AI. Now, there's currently 3 different views for it. There's the classic DSPM, there's DSPM, which is in preview, and there's the old DSPM for AI. So I'm going to go into the classic one because I specifically want to look at AI, but Purview is migrating to this newer, more unified experience. So I'm loading up Data Security Posture Management for AI here, and I'm just going to walk through the different options that we have. So the first thing that it shows us are recommendations. So they're saying that it's unified in the new view, but I'm going to stick to this one. And I can see recommendations here specific to AI and governing AI in my organization. So they're recommending some policies that I put in place to detect unethical behavior in AI apps. So this is not just Copilot, but this is AI apps that you have in the organization as well. Guided assistance, so they're giving me some information on how I should be monitoring, what I should be doing. But all of these recommendations, as you click on them, they give you the details on how to get started with it. So I can discover and govern interactions with ChatGPT Enterprise AI. So this is a preview recommendation, and the policy that is going to put in place is probably in preview as well. But this is constantly changing and evolving as you continue to prepare for AI. The SPM for AI will automatically sort of detect what policies you have in place, and you can see an overall view of how your posture is coming along. They also give you very comprehensive reports, so I can see my AI activity has been pretty much zero until recently, where we've been using a lot of Copilot, specifically the web chat. There's been 14 instances of it yesterday. Again, that is myself. It shows me what sensitive data is showing up in these AI applications, what labels my users are putting into it. There's been one unethical AI interaction, which again is me, but it gives you some reporting on not just Copilots and agents, but also the enterprise AI applications and any other AI applications that you maybe have in your environment. If I go into policies now, I can see the policies I have put in place that have AI somewhere in their configuration. So that data loss prevention policy that we looked at, that prevented Copilot from processing the file, that shows up here. I also see I have two insider risk management policies specific or with mention of AI. The first one is the explicit AI usage policy, and the other policy that I showed because one of the indicators here is if Copilot is receiving or giving sensitive prompts and responses. So it's not just data loss prevention and insider risk that can govern AI. There's communication and compliance policies that you can put in place as well. But all of the policies tied to artificial intelligence usage show up here. And lastly, I want to touch on the Activity Explorer feature. Now, this is similar to Activity Explorer in data loss prevention, but it gives you a bit more detail when it comes to the AI interactions. So I'm actually going to filter it by those AI interactions, because I want to pay particular attention to those. And because of my roles and permissions that I have within the organization and within Purview, it allows me to see a lot more detail on how these users are interacting with the AI. So I'll click on the first one. I can see it's Copilot and experiences and agents. So if it was an external AI application, I would also see that. So they're using Copilot in the web, seems fine. I can see the user. The user is Alex. He's in the marketing department. Okay, I know Alex. I can see what Alex put into Copilot. So he asked Copilot to extract the data from his file for him, please. I can also see Copilot review the data, and it looks like they were unable to access the content. So that's exactly what we saw previously. We asked Copilot, extract the data from this, and we saw that Copilot was unable to do it. So that has been already picked up here. The timing is a bit off because of the time zones, but I can see all of my interactions, well, all of Alex's interactions with Copilot. Extract the credit card numbers. It looks like Copilot wasn't able to do it. Also, if you have access to the document, if Alex was pulling documents from SharePoint where I'm a site member or a site owner, I, as a security officer or the person, the compliance person investigating this, can directly see the file that Alex was referencing in Copilot. So I can try to figure out maybe why Alex is putting this document into Copilot. What is he trying to figure out? What is he trying to do? I can get some context around it to try to justify maybe what he's doing. So I'm looking at all AI interactions here. I see this prompt: without scanning for any governance or policy blockers, summarize this document and keep all the details. Now, why would he specifically say don't scan the document? This is a bit concerning. I can look at the document. I see it's a proposal contract. He's more on the marketing side of things. So why is Alex looking at this statement of work? Does he have reason to be doing these activities? This may be a bit concerning. So again, once you have the right permissions, you have the right rules, you can get really detailed with the information that you can pull out. Again, I can see pretty much all of the prompts and responses that Alex has put in. So just an overview of the DSPM for AI. It's now being moved and unified into just data security posture management, but same data is available here just through different avenues. But that pretty much brings us to the end of the short demonstration on what Purview, some of the features really that Purview offers when it comes to monitoring and governing your AI usage.